Hello Internet! Today I'm going to make a leather wet formed AirTag holder for a keychain. To keep it simple, I'd like to use one piece of leather folded over to make both the top and bottom portion of the holder. Let's start with a simple design. It's going to be small enough to be on a keychain. It's going to have to be mirrored because we want to use one piece of leather folded over. So we're going to keep a nice organic design, very simple, flowing. The AirTag itself will be around here, and on the flip side, around here. So once it's folded over, we might want to put a hole here and a hole here. Let's take a look at how to design this on the computer. So here's the basic shape as we sketched it out on our notepad. For the stitching, I've used 1mm diameter holes spaced 5mm apart. Once the AirTag is inserted, we can close up the hole using a fastener, either a snap rivet or a Chicago screw, and that will prevent the AirTag from slipping out. So then if you want to change the battery or change the AirTag itself, you can simply undo the screw and that will provide enough space for the AirTag to slip right back in. So I'm going to export this file as an SVG and bring that into Xtools Studio. Great, now here's the SVG that we created in CorelDRAW, imported into Xtools Studio. Because I'm not doing any engraving or scoring, all the lines shown here will be cut marks. For the AirTag holder, I'm going to go with some vegetable tan leather that's roughly 1mm thick. Based on the size of the file, I know I'm going to roughly need a piece of leather that's about 6 inches by 2 1/4. Let's get this piece of leather set up in the Xtool S1, and then we can begin cutting. Now we're going to mark the processing area. And place our object in the middle. Once that's all done, we're ready to cut. And there it is, ready to go. So because we want to wet form this leather, we need a mold. We need a way to stretch the leather around an object that's similar to the AirTag itself. My first attempt was to make a mold using a metal aluminum shape, but that was inserted. Then it gave me a thickness about half the size of the AirTag itself. So when I formed the top and the bottom, it equaled the same distance as the thickness of the AirTag. This was a pretty simple design and pretty easy to make. It consists of a positive and a negative. So then once the negative is placed over top of the positive, with some pressure, with some C-clamps, you can squeeze the leather, because it's wet, over top of the mold. Then once it's dry, it will retain its shape. Now, it worked out pretty well. However, this MDF board doesn't like to get wet. So applying wet leather over and over to this material wasn't the best option. So, taking on what I've learned here, with the help of my dad, who has a 3D printer, we designed a plastic version of the positive and negative die. Once again, we have the negative, simple hole, and we have the positive here, which simulates the half the thickness of one of the AirTags. We added some alignment dowels that line up perfectly each time, so once this is compressed, the tolerances will be the same over and over. So the way this works, we'll take a damp piece of leather, place it over top of the mold, and then compress the two halves. So in order for the leather to take the shape of the mold, it needs to be fully saturated with water. I use warm water. I'm not sure if it makes a difference between cold, warm, or hot, but warm is the way I go. So what we want to do, we want to take the leather, submerge it in the water, and we can see a bunch of little air bubbles coming out of the leather. Once all the bubbles have stopped, we know the leather has taken on as much water as it can and it's fully saturated. Then we want to take the leather out and just dry off the surface, just tap it down. Now we're ready to form the leather in our mold. I've created a few little guide marks in pen on the mold just for alignment. I'm going to do my best to visually align these up here. Then we're ready to close off the mold with the top. Give it a little push down, and now we want to clamp it. So what I like to use here is a few C-clamps because they give a lot of pressure. Side. So we squeeze. So here it is, all clamped up. You can leave it in here overnight to dry if you wish, but I usually leave it in here for about 2 or 3 minutes, just enough time for the leather to form around the mold. And once that's done and stretched, you can safely take it out. So you have a few minutes, so you have time to go make yourself a coffee. Okay, it's been a few minutes. Let's start taking off the clamps. And we'll release the mold. There we go. And there it is. We'll go ahead and do the other side, and we'll let the whole thing dry. So here it is, once it's had some time to dry. Let's put some stitches in it and see how it looks. Now the stitching's all done, it's looking really good. Let's get a Chicago screw in there and finish it off. And there we go. Looks really good. Thank you for watching. If there's any other topics you'd like to see covered, leave a comment down below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. Thank you.